Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will discuss Chapter 4 of Observing the Craft, The Pursuit of Excellence.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Matt Appel, and I am a Mason here in Washington, Mill Creek Lodge number 243 in Montlake Terrace. And I am joined today by two of our three other hosts. We have Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60, and Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung from Prince Charles number 153. The first one of those is in Auburn, Washington, and the second in Kelowna, British Columbia. So I've already messed up the introductions. But today we'll be discussing Chapter 4 of Observing the Craft. But before we get there, I want to ask Steve. I meant to ask in the Blue Room, but I forgot, so I'll do it on the air now. Do you still have a house full of people? How are things with the fires up there? Are you?
Everybody got to go home today. This afternoon, the last of the house guests went home, and not any of they all have homes to go back to. And the power was on the whole time for all of them, so they didn't have any freezer spoil or anything like that. A little bit of smell because somebody had left a window open. But the other people that closed all their windows and just left the AC unit on, they got some filters to clean. But other than that, everything is good for all of them. Unfortunately, can't say that for the rest of the people. There was a couple hundred homes lost in the fires that I know of. I'm not up to date on the numbers, but at last count, I had heard there was a couple hundred. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the families that are suffering from that now. And I'm sure there will be a lot of relief work done over the next couple months and helping these people get situated.
Yeah, here. For those who don't know, Steve, up in Kelowna, across the river in West Kelowna, there was a series of wildfires and houses burned down, like Steve was just saying.
And actually, it jumped the lake. We never thought
really?
It would, but it jumped the lake, and Kelowna went on fire. Our dump is on fire still. We're not allowed back in there.
Good grief.
Still doing some back burning in Kelowna and West Kelowna.
Like the Simpsons, the tire fire that burns forever.
Yeah, but who'd have thought it would jump the lake? That's quite the span.
Yeah, so Steve got to practice some Masonic charity, if you will, and help out some people he knew around there. And I agree with you. My prayers are definitely for people up there. And two,
I note 8 cats. I took in 8 cats, 2 dogs, 6 humans, and and the rest of our family was here. So note that 8 cats.
It's a lot of litter boxes to change.
No, actually only 2, and I didn't have to worry about it. Their owners were great. They took care of them. It's awesome.
Oh, cool. So today, to get back to the topic at hand, we're discussing Chapter 4 of Observing the Craft. It sort of is I felt like it was a kickoff summary chapter for the next 3 chapters about ritual and dress and dining in the craft and how they should be excellent, if you will. I felt like this was both a chapter in and of itself and sort of the next 3 chapters condensed into one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That came out very, very well said, because I was feeling the same way about it. Even though it's a chapter in its own and a long one at that, it was a summary and an intro to them all.
So, what stood out to you guys about it? As far as I could ramble on, but what?
Well, I think I mentioned it in the previous recording too, but right off the bat, he talks about that Masonry. This idea of scarcity is, a commodity. Gives a commodity its value. So he was, in my mind, he was comparing Masonry to a commodity, and I wasn't sure if that was a good comparison or bad comparison. Jarrod had a good point that it's not so much that it was comparing it to actual commodity like wheat or some kind of fuel or whatever, actual commodities, but that it should be treated as if it were a scarcity. And I think that's the the opening quote from Preston is really, really, it's a great opening quote. And so I think that he's just trying to impress upon us that we should consider it a scarce thing and not necessarily available to everyone, or should necessarily take in everyone.
So just for those who don't have their book in front of them, the quote's short enough that I'll go ahead and read it into the record here. Were the privilege of Masonry to be common or indiscriminately bestowed, the design of the institution would be subverted. For being familiar, like many other important matters, they would soon lose their value and sink into disregard. That's my grand orator voice right there.
Well done. Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's if it's commonplace and it's really available for anyone, I can see where they're talking about the value. It's not as valuable. And we often get into that kind of conversation when we talk about dues. A lot of the brethren go, well, I pay a lot of more money at the Rotary, and I pay for every event, and I said, well, why do you do that? They said, well, because there's value there, right? And they get some value out of it, and hopefully, the guys are getting what they're looking for out of lodge and seeing the value in lodge. I don't. I always struggle when guys talk about the dues and then of course the value that they're getting for it or not getting for it, etc. Because it's a matter of contribution, and again, he says it in the pursuit. Really, to be in pursuit of the excellence that Masonry is known for. I think that adds to the mystique of why a lot of people join Masonry too, right? I mean, they to some, it's like being on a pedestal, I think.
When he kind of relates it to the Romans in the beginning as well, that to be a Roman in the past was an important and grand thing. But then later, as Roman Empire took over and was more prevalent, he talks about it being eventually it even reached the barbarians at the gate. I kind of laughed when I read that, thinking, it had become so commonplace to be a Roman that it wasn't as important or prestigious to be a Roman. And so I can't imagine Freemasonry ever getting to the barbarian to the gate, if you will. But although a lot of jurisdictions are instituting background checks, and so maybe in some instances it is to most of that point. But he also goes on to talk about that university educations. It used to be that having university education was a really high pedestal and something to really look forward to or look up to, and it was really valued. And now almost any job requires university education of some. It's like a basis, right?
Yeah,
any master's or higher degrees are required.
And he also talks about the institutions that used to be, touted as being the like going to Harvard or MIT or this. They used to be special, but now access to them is commonplace. And if you've got the prerequisites of the previous education requirements, anybody can go there. So I get it, and that's one of the things that I guess where Masonry is different than any other organization is the fact that you have to have two guys that are master masons in the same lodge sponsor you and be willing to sign your petition and recommend you, for one, and you can still be denied membership through the voting process. So I don't know. I think that that's what I guess gives us the ability to be seen as different right now. I think that there's a lot of people talking about membership numbers and recruitment and marketing and things like that to rebuild the membership numbers and so on. And I think that there could be a lot of mistakes coming from the pursuit of membership rather than the pursuit of excellence.
All right. So now is the time when Appel says something stupid and everybody says, "You're stupid." Here we go. I want Masonry to be for everyone. I want everyone in this on this God's green earth here, I guess half the population, but anyway, you get the idea, to be a Mason, because I want them all to be worthy of being Masons. I agree that some people are not right now. I'm not saying we should go into the courtrooms and say, "Hey, what are you accused of? Come on, be a Mason." That's not what I'm saying. But if everybody in the country or in North America were worthy of being a Mason, woohoo, let's make them all Masons. I think this scarcity thing is kind of I don't want it to be scarce. I want us all to be awesome and us all to be brothers, and let's go.
I'm going to channel my inner Jarrod. No. Come on.
So I guess my first question is, does anybody know, because I don't, I am not a scholar of ancient Roman anything. Is Andrew Hammer knowledgeable in the ways of such things? Is that his area of expertise? He's like a diplomat, isn't he? So
I have no idea about that, but I would have a sense from the guy that he wouldn't necessarily write something that couldn't be backed up or justified. I can't imagine he would add something.
I agree that seems logical, but I would want to know in what way that Roman citizenship was devalued. What is the metric by which he's asserting
it became commonplace, and so it wasn't elite at that point. The idea of he was just trying to correlate the commonality of scarcity.
So we shouldn't have let women vote because that made it less scarce?
That's a different topic, I think.
That's extending citizenship to more people.
Citizenship is not Freemasonry.
We're talking about Roman citizenship here. Did Roman citizenship get devalued by more people being Roman citizens? I don't know. I suspect that. So my almost even bigger argument with this is that these things, the university education and the citizenship and the scarcity, are almost to make it seem, and this is my argument about the dress thing too, to make it seem more valuable to non-Masons almost. Like, like I think Steve just said, it made us put us on a pedestal. It made us seem different. It's that. So what is if dressing, okay, so I shouldn't be talking about dressing because that's next chapter, 2 chapters from now. So I should let that one go. But I have issues. Tell me I'm wrong now.
Let it out, Matt. Let it out. It's okay.
No, Matt, I think what Matt's saying is that he wishes everybody would live by, or I suppose live by the philosophy of Masonry, and to be a good person and to be the best of themselves.
But they can be that, though. They can be good people, and he talks about it later in the. We hope that all good citizens, all citizens are good, but not all citizens have to be Freemasons, and so Freemasons are a avenue, if you will, to develop people, men, into a status that then they want to go out and be good citizens and show that good citizenry to the other citizens to help them continue to maintain. But Freemasonry itself is the word elitist is a harsh word, but it's a segment. It's not an entire population.
And I have the same thoughts like Stephen was saying about the Harvard MIT comparison. Yeah, hell yeah. If someone has the brains to get into Harvard, send them to freaking Harvard. Put them in MIT. Great. Excellent. They'll get a great education. Woohoo.
But not everybody can afford to go to Harvard or MIT.
I wish they could. I wish that everyone who is smart enough could go there.
But wishing it doesn't make it happen.
I agree.
Yeah. Just like with Freemasonry, you can wish everybody to be a Freemason, but not everybody can or will or wants to be a Freemason.
I 100% agree. Yep.
And to that point, I'm going to find something, and we were preparing for our going back to lodge in September, and they asked the question, what's the status of the guys that have reached out and are in the 6-step program, right? And so it was a request that we contact these fellows and see if they're still interested in moving forward. And so I put the message out, and of course this sparked a series of emails, and it kind of falls in line. But here's the comments of the first reply. Please indulge the following observation. While the message below may fall within the realm of retention, my view on it has been and continues to be that it amounts to chasing, which is not something that we as a fraternity do. Anyone that we have to chase has experienced the same interview process in which they are told and acknowledge the clear message that the next step is up to them, and that we will not chase them. It is up to them to follow up with us if they still wish to pursue, right? And then he says, if we have to chase, we're after the wrong people. I'm well aware of the need for ongoing regeneration, but this should at the very least be the subject of a sit down by the lodge leadership, in my humble view. Right. And so, it does speak to a bit to the elitism theory of that, and that we don't pursue membership. We don't chase for members, right? And and so we're going to have some interesting conversations in the next several weeks over this, I'm sure.
But he also goes on to say that his concern really is that if everybody becomes a Mason, then it'll become just commonplace, and it'll become a social rather than a singular enterprise.
I agree.
Inevitably, that's what his thought is. And because based on experience, right? As through the 50s, when we had a huge surge globally, but mostly North America, of Masons, it became different, because every man that came in brought his thing into Masonry, and it became his Masonry rather than Freemasonry.
Right.
Which is what the whole book is about, trying to get back to what Andrew Hammer at least believes is Freemasonry. And so one of the aspects he's concerned about is that if everybody was a Freemason, now if everybody was a Freemason and it completely adopted the ideas of observance, he might be okay with that. But in his experience, and he believes inevitably, that that's not the case.
And I have thoughts on that too.
Well, come on.
But I think that we are about at the end of our allotted time for this episode. Yes.
We're only on the third page, man. we could quick out another 5 minutes or so.
We'll have 18 episodes about this chapter.
Well, that'd be all right. We do have to finish before into 2023, but that's about it.
So I guess.
So, it's like in here, he writes, Masonry calls us to excellence, or what one might specifically refer to as the perfection of the stones with which we work. Excellence is a word so commonly used today to describe the degree of quality of a thing that one fears we might forget that it is a noun derived from a verb, right? To excel means to surpass someone or something, to be better than others in a particular quality or action. The etymology of the word from its Latin origin reveals an engaging meaning for Masons: to rise from or to rise up. So, I mean, uh, yeah, I wish it was for everybody, but when we talk about Freemasonry and what we do, and not just the theory of being a good person, the other stuff that we do, the ritual work, the education pieces, the lectures that are given, the brethren who deliver these pieces of work um, strive to deliver them well, to have impact and meaning to the person receiving them, right? So that's a little different. I don't think everybody can do that. So I kind of gotta agree with the statement that uh, not everyone can do it. It's not for everyone, right? I think that it should be available and accepting to anyone who is pursuing it that qualifies in the eyes of the fraternity, right? And I wish more people would pursue it. But I think the membership in Freemasonry is a little different topic than the pursuit of excellence in Freemasonry. The pursuit of excellence talks about the everyone striving to be the best they can possibly be, the best ritualist, the best man, um, I guess as we refer to uh, smoothing the rough edges of our own stones and working hard at it.
Yeah, and he requires excellence of every member, and I think again that goes back to the idea of not everybody could be a member necessarily, or should be a member, because not everybody is always looking for excellence. And it's not just in ritual, it's not just in these things, but it's also, as you said, just beyond the ritual themselves, but also understanding and advancing. And what are we really doing here in Freemasonry? What is the business in which we're meant to be engaged, as he says? And so that, like you said, pursuit of excellence in every aspect of our life, and then that continues, and it's a lifetime of self-development and wanting to be better, and to bring that to the not necessarily to ourselves and also to those around us, but the community at large, the public at large, and to show that we are good men.
I 1000% agree. We should be pursuing excellence in ourselves, and we should be bettering ourselves. And I also agree the part about the ritual. Those who are delivering the ritual should be doing an ideal world, not the perfect ritualist. Sorry, my finger disappears when I do that. Not the perfect ritualist. I'm in an ideal world, we should be striving for improving ourselves in the ritual and delivering excellent quality ritual. Absolutely.
Underline striving.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Underline striving.
Yes. I don't see how scarcity helps that.
Well, again, if we go back to the first page, and it's not so much that I think it's not so much even that he, if the experience in the past hadn't shown the result, I don't think he had woven that into this idea. But in his experience and what he has been able to research, or at least provided, now maybe he is a bit of a storyteller. Maybe he is weaving the words so that fits into the dialogue that he wants. I don't know. I don't know him that well, and it's quite possible that he chose those words so that he could get his point across. But what I read in there is more that in the experience and in the past of Freemasonry, it has become the everyman's Freemason and not the Freemasonry of the past. And that's why I think he thinks that scarcity is important to maintain that excellence, to maintain those things.
So if one accepts the origin of Freemasonry as being from the trade guilds of Scotland and England and that origin story, and does not subscribe to the hypothesis that it started with whatever Noah or etc., then when the original tradesmen admitted whoever, de Gaulier and St. Clair and all those guys way back in time, were they making Freemasonry less or more accessible and less excellent, and they should not, Freemasonry should still be a trade union? I mean, they admitted other men who formed Freemasonry into something which it was not. Right?
First of all, do we believe the stories?
Given that the origins are a bit obscure, shall we say?
Yeah, my belief isn't that. Well, so here's the surgical table of life: Freemasonry. I don't believe that the Freemasons actually took the Freemasonry guilds and became, the story we talk about how we were woven into the guilds of Freemasonry. I think they just saw a cool structure and said, hey, let's mimic that. It's a good system and we can utilize these symbols. And I don't think that was actually Freemasons. I mean, maybe because they were the elitist guys in the time, it's being an operative Mason was a scarce element. Not everybody could be an operative Mason. And he does weave it in later. He talks about, we can get to it on the next segments, but he talks about how if it'd be almost impossible for a master to teach 1,000 apprentices. But if a master teaches 10 and they become masters, then those 10 can teach 10. And like the Breck commercial, everybody gets their hair washed.
And then eventually we're all Masons.
Well, maybe. Or at least it's the idea of mastery is taught easier in small groups rather than to the masses, is what his point was. But that's another section.
Well, it sounds like David says we're moving on to the next segment. So, yeah, seriously, we have more about this to talk about, I think, and it's been a little bit, so we can move on to the next segment, I think. So, on behalf of, first of all, I want to say, actually, I met a gentleman. This is probably a blue room conversation, but I'll toss it out there. I was in it's on the Hood Canal for a outdoor degree this weekend, and there was a guy came up to me, and I was introducing myself, and I'm trying to do better at remembering names and faces because I'm really not so good at it. And he comes up to me and says, "And I know who you are." And I was like, "Oh, geez, somebody else I've met whose name I don't remember." And then he goes, "Because I listen to your podcast." So, Brother Patrick McHenry, thank you. It was good to talk to you this weekend. But yeah, so it was, anyway, it was a great event. But the point is, it's just cool to get feedback from people out there. And a lot of the easy way for us to get that feedback is either on social media or emails or YouTube or whatever. And we look forward to your comments and to hearing what your thoughts. And as you can tell, once in a while we don't all agree on something, and it's nice to hear other people's opinions, hopefully when they agree with me. So with that, on behalf of David and Stephen and the absent Jarrod and myself, I want to thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.